Hello.
Hey, Joe, it's Ben.
Hey, Ben. Whew. Hey, Sabas. All right. He's in the chat.
So I think you have to allow people to talk specifically, it looks like.
Yeah. We have Q&A, polls. Got the screen sharing. We are
Yep.
recording. Awesome. Oh, it got cold up here again, Ben.
It's working its way there today, buddy. Well, cold for us. It's gonna be like 44 degrees tonight.
Oh, 44. It is currently. Oh, geez. This new phone doesn't have it readily available. There we go. Oh, yeah. It's currently 40.
Oh,
47.
brutal.
47.
Brutal.
Yeah, and the low of tonight is 27.
Oof.
Yeah, dude, it was 75 degrees all week, and then suddenly,
Yeah. Suddenly. Man, I have a ton of open windows. How did that happen?
I mean, yeah. Hey, John Wick. Got people joining. Awesome. Oh. Did you just try to share your screen?
No.
Oh.
Did you want me to?
No. I thought I just saw. Unless
Flash.
I'm having, yeah, like I'm having flash issues, like stuff was popping around.
Hmm.
Yeah, I need to get so most of the rooms in my house have a border like they do behind, like you do behind you. So now I guess I need to try to get one about this height, so it looks like we're in the same room. But
Right. Yeah. Like right next to each other with different cameras. That's amazing.
yeah, I just realized that my office is one of the only rooms that doesn't have that.
Hmm. There's supposed to be pictures back behind me, but this one I haven't fixed yet. You see where like the
Oh
marker
yeah,
goes to hang the thing. Yeah.
well, I bought all this art and realized that I don't know how to hang it. It's all like commissioned by
Yeah.
friends and stuff, so it's all just sitting in a box on the 3D printer that also needs assembled in front of my desk here.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
You know, I don't win things very often, and and then when I do, I always get a decent prize, but I'm always like, never get the first or grand prize. So I entered a 3D. I was on Creality's website. They have a new like solid steel, like it's a huge, like massive printer. And I entered to win it. It was the CR5H. So it's fully enclosed, Core XY, so it kind of comes down as it prints the thing from the bottom up. And then but it was also the H, so it could print nylon and like heavy materials.
Oh yeah.
And I went to the site the day it was released, and I was like, yeah, I'll enter to win one. And I want to, I shouldn't complain. A CR10 S2 SV of CR10 V2 S Pro. So it's got the BL Touch. It does all the cool stuff. It's just not enclosed. I guess I can build an enclosure. Got some people showing up now. A few faces that I recognize. Hey guys, Iron Beagle, Danny Aki. So do you know who Danny Aki is, Ben?
I don't know.
Let's see. Second 2OC stream, second order chaos stream, also called Rando.
Oh, awesome.
So I invited him. We got some questions already, it looks like.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, hello, folks. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds, guys. I don't even know when 2 on the dot is. Like my phone says it's 2 already. My computer says we have 2 more minutes. All right. Couple last minute signups here, by the way.
Oh, nice.
All right, all right, all right. All right. Now my Outlook says it's 2. Give it a thing another minute or 2, or
Sure. Joe, you're going to take care of watching to see if there are folks who need have questions, or you want to unmute people selectively. That'd be cool.
yeah. So the way I think this will work, guys, is we'll show the product. If you guys have any question, feel free to put them in the Q&A. And towards the end there, I will hit the, and everybody can talk mode. I think I can do that. Or I can just click on everybody's microphone, it looks like. And then we're going to have a quick conversation because we want kind of that live feedback. And then, of course, everybody who's attending gets a, was it free 2-week trial, or,
Yep, if they'd like to, absolutely. Definitely talk more about that as we go.
Yeah.
You think we're good to go, Joe?
I think we are good to go at the moment. Let's go ahead and get rocking.
All right. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everybody, wherever you may be coming from today. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to hang out with Joe and I and talk about this tool that we're working on, and really anxious today for your feedback and hopefully to get some of you onboarded to give it a try and really help us work through some use cases on this thing and really zero in on what we think it can help folks out. I'm going to take a page from some other presenters I've watched recently who turned the camera off when they're presenting, so I can spend my energy worrying about the presentation and not making weird faces into the camera. So here we go. I think I got to switch over real quick, Joe, and ask to be a presenter. Now I can share. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
How do I
I do
turn my
have.
camera off? Where's that button at? There we go.
Okay. How does that look, Joe? Can you see my screen share over there?
Absolutely can see it.
Beautiful. All right. So a real quick story time. We at OnDefend do a lot of consulting engagements. Like sort of more traditional pen tests or like sort of like adversary emulation or red team type engagements where the customers are bringing us in to sort of see if they have some assumptions that can be proven either correct or wrong and where they can go to fix it, right? And what we notice, especially in the ones that involve a lot more of their ability to detect or respond, is that they frequently don't work as well as they want to. And well, I'd love to say it's because we're just that awesome. I mean, Joe's fantastic, right? But the reality is that usually there's lots of things working against them, and we wanted to try to see if we could help out. So the first thing that we notice if we go through an engagement and we're not detected is that frequently there's all kinds of detection failures, finding the activity in their environment that they're worried about. And these are, sometimes we see just incorrect configurations of the security tools themselves. But a lot of times we'll see like changes around in the environment that made whatever that security tool was supposed to be monitoring suddenly not as effective, right? Like, and I'm sure all of you have even better stories about this than we do, but like we've got all kinds of really great ones about like, some new tool that was supposed to detect all kinds of network lateral movement. It didn't detect any of the movement that we did. And when they went and looked at it, it turned out that like the span port from the switch got disabled like 3 months earlier for like an innocent mistake that the network team made, and they had no idea. And now like that system was basically getting no data. So of course there were no alerts. So stuff like that, we see that all the time. The other thing that we see a lot of is like failures in alerting, where maybe a tool picked us up and it like logged that event, but it wasn't something that brought anybody's attention to it, right? Like a lot of organizations are unfortunately still driven by like alerts that come out to you and basically like, like are sent to your email or create a ticket or something. And so there's not a lot of actual threat hunting. So if there's no like effective alerting that takes all that telemetry data that you're getting, or there's just so many alerts that you don't have time to process them all, we see that. We also run into a lot of process failures, like ingestion failures. We ran into one customer, probably an extreme example, where through like a series of like the way that the telemetry was like collected and then analyzed and then the alerts were generated, there was like a good 6-hour delay between when an activity occurred and when the events were like alerted, like when a ticket was opened to bring somebody's attention to it, which obviously is not the goal that that organization was going for. So if we had to sum up, we find that these cause a lot of blind spots for organizations where their detection program doesn't work the way that they want to. And if you think about it, it's really tricky for like a group of network defenders to try to figure this out, because they get the chance, if they're lucky, to practice like once a year during a pen test, right? Maybe they're fortunate enough to have like an in-house red team, and so they can do this a little more often. But for the most part, they're up against either consultants like Joe and myself, and probably most of the folks on this call, or like actual attackers who literally do this all the time, and it just isn't fair. So I think we saw an opportunity to help build some tooling that maybe we thought could help fix some of these things by kind of taking some of the limitations that a pen test itself as an engagement to fix this problem has, versus what we would kind of envision as like an ideal like outcome. So there's a bunch of things here. I think the one thing that we'll probably talk most about is the idea of like the ability to test a lot of other techniques and attack paths. In a pen test, especially if you're on like a red team engagement or adversary simulation where you're trying to evade detection and you're trying to get towards a specific objective, if you find a great technique that lets you dump credentials on whatever systems the customer's using, you're not going to go and try 7 other ways. Like if you found one that they're not detecting and that works, you're just going to keep using that and pivoting ruthlessly until you get to the objective, which is great for the outcome of that one pen test, but isn't great if you're a defender worrying about all different kinds of credential dumping, right? Sort of as an example. One thing that we focus a lot on when we sit down with customers after these kind of engagements have happened is this idea of like this detection value chain. And I'm sure there's more elaborate ways to describe this, but in a nutshell, you have this idea of like all the way on the left, we have like the point of enforcement, whether it's somebody's laptop or it's a firewall, like on a network, or whatever the security control is, right? Wherever that thing exists, either to do detection or prevention, you have that thing lives there, and it may or may not be doing its job correctly. But even if it's doing its job 100% right, if we don't have the rest of this flow, then it's hard to say that the detection program is working the way you want to, right? So we have to have some mechanism for shipping all this telemetry data from wherever that point of enforcement is to some centralized location where you can run queries and build alerts, and have that logic allow you to take that raw telemetry and then build your customized alerts and then bring it to the attention of a person, or maybe some automation you have that kicks in from there. But the idea is that, if you've got an endpoint that some malware lands on there and it's just grinding away, trying things that keep getting blocked by your endpoint security controls, that's fantastic. But you don't want to let it just sit there and like work until it finds a way around your controls, right? You want to step in and stop it by bringing somebody's attention to it. So we have this idea, like if you're going to test if a security detection or prevention tool works the way you think it does, not only do you have it work correctly at the point of enforcement, but you have the telemetry data coming too. I don't think that's really controversial, but that's just like stuff that we make sure is in everybody's mind before we go, right?
I think the important thing though too, right, is like, this is one of those things, like a lot of operations centers are metrics. Well, again, how do we know we're getting value out of our security team? Not just the pen testers, right? We always have to justify our existence, but even the blue teamers. And this is another way to potentially help show, like, by the way, the detections we put in place caught this tooling, and it's 25 different ways to do something. 24 of the 25 ways. So with a little bit more time, effort, or money, or budget, or, hey, we only did one, so we need a lot more budget, or we did 24, 25. Hey, that shows you have a value because you have a tangible metric.
Right. Good point, Joe.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a pretty heavy demo. I'm not going to spend a lot of time through the slides. I did want to show a couple quick things in here. When we talk about the purpose of the tool, when we originally put this together, we didn't really intend for this to be something that we would actually like turn loose and let customers use themselves. This was more like sort of a time savings for our team, like when they were working with customers on this. So we are in the process of sort of converting this into like sort of help guide you on the path, as opposed to just being a utility that does a lot of these things. But where we go with this, where we've seen this used, or we've had the best success with it, has been in a few areas. Well, the first one I'll talk about is tabletop exercises. We conduct a fair number of those tabletop exercises for organizations that like involve usually like executive teams and all stuff, right? And we're going through, like a ransomware scenario, or whatever it is, the whole organization. And we kept running into this problem where we'd get to the point where like the company or the customer's technical team is supposed to be doing some sort of incident response work. And they would say something like, oh yeah, at this point, we would identify the command and control channels used by the malware and find all of the infected hosts and have them immediately isolated from the network and contain the spread of the outbreak, as if it were like that easy, right? And so we'd always have to be like, trying to be like the jerks and the realists. We're like, okay, well, I know that that's like the theory, but let's like really work on this. Let's figure this out. So a while ago, we kind of stopped having to do that. And we just gave our sponsors at the customer's site the ability to have access to BlindSPOT and to launch some of the simulations that we'll show you in a few minutes. And what was great about that is that we, at that point, when the team would make that statement, we'd be like, fantastic. These are the IOCs of the simulation running right now in your environment. Let's go find the systems where that is and contain, like reconstruct these timelines and contain them. And it makes for a much more interactive scenario, much better, much more realistic. It's something that really allows us to inject some realism and show that there's a lot more uncertainty and a lot longer tail on that kind of activity than you thought. We do a lot of workshops with teams where they're whatever you want to call it, their SOC team or their threat hunting team or their whatever wants to do like a workshop scenario. A lot of these customers have, for example, like access to cyber ranges, which are cool and great, except that whenever you're in a cyber range, it's invariably not your production environment. And so we find that there's a big gap between the tools and the limitations inherent in a cyber range versus like the actual production network that you're actually going to have to defend. We find some other customers really like this for some sensor tuning, like specific security controls where they have some assumptions about the way that either a specific security tool like an EDR will gather data, or some alerting that they're trying to build, whether in like a SIEM or in like a SOAR platform or something that they might have. And we need to generate positive signal in the environment that they then can use to improve their making sure that their detections have really good that they're not fragile, that they cover the technique and not just like that particular PowerShell command of that way of executing that technique, right? We see some folks use it as like a good way to compare a bad baseline versus like a real baseline, because we're generating activity in here that is supposed to be by definition outside of the normal. So that's really cool. And then the other thing we see is people using this to test telemetry and alerting delay. So if you can do a test on here where you can control exactly when activities occur, you can then time it and figure out when alerts tie in, and that's always good. So I think from there, with this crew, I'd really like to jump over into the tool and kind of show you a little bit more of how that works. So let me stop sharing that and share the next thing. I've got a VM stood up that I've got ready to go for us to take a look at how this would work. Okay. Joe, how does that look? Is that coming through for everybody?
Yep, there it is. Looks good to me now.
Okay, great. So
Well,
this
quick,
is the webinar.
I'll say quick pause. Any Q&A? We have a questions panel here. I can have you guys ask any questions at the moment. We'll take a look, or if not, we'll keep rolling. I don't see anything popping up, so let's keep rolling.
Okay, awesome. So BlindSPOT is made up of two components at the moment, right? There's the user interface that we're looking at here, and like the sort of like the C2 for the system, and then we have an agent. And the agent does a couple of things for us. First of all, these aren't agents in the sense of like an enterprise-wide deploy this agent on all your endpoints kind of a thing. That's definitely not that. It's more like agent in the sense of like a C2 framework, like an implant kind of a thing. We use these agents to do a couple of things. One function is payload delivery to kick off the simulations, and then the other thing right now that we use it for is we do some endpoint assessment to help give folks an idea of like what this current security posture of their system is. We allow folks to build custom agents like on the fly in here, and so we have a bunch of different configuration settings. Like if you have a specific network, we have a few customers that have sort of like segmented networks where the only internet connectivity is back through a proxy. So you can build an agent that's specific for that scenario with the right proxy and a few other options. And once you build it, you download it, and then you run it. It's really simple. You just pull it up in memory, something like this. The agent itself doesn't actually put anything on disk, so it's just the agent. It runs all in memory. We do have a persistent option if you want to set it up as like a service so that it survives reboots. But otherwise, it's super lightweight. You don't have to be an admin to run it. As soon as you got it turned on, it checks in with our system here, pulls back some basic information about the system, screenshots, that kind of stuff. And then from here, you're ready now to launch simulations that you might have in mind. So all of our simulations right now are based on sort of like well-known threat groups and well-known malware families, kind of mirroring the type of the tactics and procedures that those organizations use to do their work, right? We just leave out like the impact, like the bad part, right? So we'll have a bunch of different samples here. So this is one, for example, that kind of mimics one of the family strains for the Maze ransomware. When we have all of our simulations are built and we publish these sort of like IOCs for them, so that you have it, so you can both do validation that things running are the intended simulation and not other things that you should be really responding to. But this is also a great way to like kick off and sort of seed a workshop where we talked earlier about the tabletop exercises. Like it was really easy for our project sponsors to be able to give their security team the IOCs, because we publish literally like the hash values, the file name, the C2 channel, like all that information gets published in here so you can see it. We include some information. We do track this stuff against the MITRE ATT&CK framework, not because we think it's the only way to do that, but it is a useful it is a useful tool, right? When you're trying to convey this information to like maybe a vendor you have a case of them with, wondering why they're not detecting this particular technique, or you want to catalog in some way. So we do map the different tactics and things against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Once we're in here, we build out the simulation that we're going to run for you, and put the attack chains up so that you can see them. Our goal here is to give you a visual representation of what the attack is about, that you're the simulation you're going to run is, and then that allows us to flip it over and show you how you did against that simulation, right? I think I'm going to go back for just 1 second and show you one more thing about the simulation library. So we have a bunch in here. All of our simulations are standalone. So like we have the C2 communication from our BlindSPOT agent, right? This thing that I was showing a moment ago, that phones home to do payload delivery, endpoint assessment, as I mentioned. But we think it's not really fair to have you maybe specifically allow our BlindSPOT C2 for this agent, and then like piggyback it as like part of how the simulations run, and then claim you like never caught any of our C2. So all of the simulations do have a separate domain or other mechanism for its command and control that we host and manage for you. So when they kick off, they are sometimes a child process. We have a few different mechanisms to do this, where we can kind of like, parent PID spoof or other things, so that we can make it harder to find, but still be able to have it all track back to something that we can give you these IOCs, and you know that those are going to be valid, right? And then once the scenario is complete, we pull all the data in from our external C2, and then we can help overlay that in the reporting, which I'll show you in just a second. Any questions or anything yet? I think we're about to get into the cool stuff, so I appreciate everybody bearing with me. Just got to get through some of this other stuff first.
Yep, no questions so far.
Sweet. So when we do the endpoint assessment, we like to do it from like a pen tester perspective, right? Where something like a Power Up or Seatbelt or some of these other tools that kind of help you, like the kind of recon you do when you land on a box as a pen tester, you're figuring out like, okay, what avenues do I have for code execution? What am I going to do for privilege escalation? What am I going to do for persistence? Do I have any lateral movement stuff here? Like those kinds of things, right? So totally different than what you get obviously out of like a Nessus or some other vulnerability scanner, but really valuable, right? Because this is something that a lot of times customers would ask us to do like an endpoint assessment. And we basically end up doing a lot of the same stuff here, but now they basically get it for free as some of it, right? So some of these things we score because we think it's worth, making sure, like if you've got AV installed that does use the AMSI interface, that's totally worth having. So we make sure that you got those. Other things we won't score, like this one doesn't have credential guard enabled. We don't have laps installed, a couple other things. Some of these other items, though, we don't even really score, because it's not like you need to do something different. We would get a lot of questions from customers where we talk about like this one, for example, I think would generate a lot of questions. We talk to customers about, an attacker won't always bring new files with them. Like they'll sometimes use like files that are already in your computer. They'll use this live off the land strategy, as it's called. And we'd get questions from customers like, well, what files on my computer should I be worried about? And so now we just dump the list like you can from some other tools, right? So now they got a complete catalog per system that they know that they can go and pull from here and figure out. And other things are really just for helping set baseline actions of like, what are the local accounts on this machine, and so that I know when that changes and gets different, right? And so we have a number of components that we score. looking to add some more of those. Like I think Sysmon may be something that we start bringing a score into, and we'll probably have some more nuance rather than just like pass fail. But for now, this was our quick attempt at getting folks some feedback when they ran this type of review.
So I'll say the endpoint assessment intrigues me, right? From both a red teamer and former, operational security role, because if you have a compliance metric, you could come here and say, hey guys, you said we have a technical control of this, and this tool, this part of the endpoint assessment should actually show you whether that is. So if you guys see that there's a value with this endpoint assessment for that, kind of letting us know, like, I mean, eventually, I won't say right away or anytime soon, but eventually this is an area that if that has, I'll say, value to you guys, we could add like, CIS scoring benchmarks and other like kind of benchmarks just to go, hey, this system is compliant within the things that we look at, not within the whole like CIS benchmark tool, right? We're not going to be doing that. But if we said, hey, we look at these things and this is CIS pass and this is CIS fail, we could include things like that. So if you see value in that, let us know.
Yep. Awesome. So now I'm going to swing over and show you a different window where I've got some more interesting reports queued up. So we're going to real quick go from setting up this thing to run campaigns to having ran some, because I wanted to go through sort of what the result of these look like and give you a sense of how that works. So let me share my screen here. All right, let me know when that comes through, Joe.
I can see it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Something happened?
It went gray. So we're looking at the survey screen right now, right? Yeah, there it is.
Look at the report screen.
Report screen.
Yeah, great. Okay. So when we run these scenarios, our goal is to work with the customer and to help them figure out, like, how did they do against that particular simulation. From our perspective, if we're just going to be really quick about it, there's 4 outcomes in each action that is part of an attack chain that either a piece of malware or an attacker uses. There's really 4 outcomes, like, for each action, right? One is that you blocked it, right? Either you had a security control that, like, stepped in and said, nope, I recognize this as bad behavior, not let it happen on my watch, right? Or maybe the permission level that we are running as. Maybe you started it as like a standard user account and, like, it can't write to that registry key, or it can't do that, make that file or whatever. But in any event, it didn't. The step failed from the attacker's perspective, right? The next 2 are both, or actually the next 3 are all cases where the attacker's technique succeeded. In the case of alerted, obviously you logged it, and some detection logic you had fired to take that telemetry and generate an alert that would bring somebody's attention to it, right? That might get somebody paged as an on-call after hours, or bring the team back from lunch a little early or something. But something that you didn't have to be looking for it, right? It found you, basically. Then we have logged that we dove in and we found this evidence for of this action happening as part of on this system. Or we have the no evidence category, where it's like, yep, we see that was part of the scenario, but if we look through our stuff, we have no evidence that action occurred. Right now, the way that it works, when we run these scenarios, we can tell the blocked actions, and so we'll have that scored right away. The rest of them, we work with the customer to score, and you can do this either in like a workshop scenario where they're coming up with their timeline and you're kind of marking it down, or you can give them this like a tool tuning perspective. But the idea is they go through each one of these things and they figure out whether or not they want it. They got an alert, no evidence logged, or whatever. And as they fill it in, we fill in these 2 timelines for them. So these are actually the same activity. We just have 2 different representations. The S curve up here is much better for, like, using in like a PowerPoint or a Word presentation or something, right? Because
That's for sure.
it's obviously fits our format much better. You can zoom in on this, by the way, and the times on this are like absolute to like the actual scenario timeline. So if you want to go in closer and see a specific one, you can. The inverted bar graph there, we really like. We find that a lot of like the network or the security engineers at the customer really like this one because you can export this view and then you have like the first bit of what the action is, so they can kind of jog their memory of like what was it that they were working on, and it gives you a good like understanding of in the flow of this particular scenario, how did they do. And if you go with our color scheme up here, you can see blues alerts, greens blocked, yellow is logged, and red is nothing. And the only blocked they had on this particular scenario was towards the end, kind of an inconsequential PowerShell command. I think it changes the wallpaper. I think in this ransomware simulation, it's the one that drops the ransom note, basically. So at this point, like the data has been like encrypted, exfiltrated, and done, right? And so not so good against this particular one. When we run these different commands, we also include like the exact command that we ran, and we include the output, so that a lot of times we'll get customers asking us like, well, it doesn't look like that ran correctly, otherwise we would see it in our logs. And so we thought we had two opportunities here, right? One is that we can show them specifically like that yes, this did run, and we have like the timestamp and the process ID that did it. But we can also show like, why would this be something that an adversary might want to run? Like what data would they get back from this command? Like what does this do for them, right? So we include a bunch of other data in here when you go to look at this. This all goes to our reporting portal too, as I'll show you in just a few minutes. But we include stuff in here like some of the data sources you can go to collect some of these things, and other stuff like that. So that's in there for every action that's part of the simulations. If the customer wants to, they can also key in their security stack, so you can start to attribute specific actions to tools, and that's helpful for something else I'll show you in just a minute that we have ready to go on the demo slide here. But the idea is you go through a walkthrough like this, you get a sense of how you handle an engagement like this, and this can really inform like how you'll like where you need to prioritize some of the tools that didn't work the way you thought they would, and some of the things that are doing okay, right? And it's not our intention to say that you need to log like literally everything. Like there will probably always be some element of things that you decide like is not worth logging, and that's fine, right? Like if you're like, I am never going to log somebody running the who am I command, that's fine, totally get it. Like that's not a high value thing to necessarily know. But just be aware, like if you're hunting down a timeline and you're looking at activity, just know that things like that wouldn't show up, right? Would never have shown up. This is an example for this. This is a sort of extracted from a real customer of how they did just 2 months later after using the tool to like work through these scenarios and coming up with a much better both building their own alerts from raw telemetry, and then also implementing some of the better security practices like on the device, right? Like removing access that the standard user account had to various things. You can see they did much better here. So they went from 1 blocked event to 13. They actually had no alerted, but a lot of these blocks include alerts, so we were cool with it. 23 of the events were logged, and only 6 they had no evidence for. And again, the 6 they had were kind of lower priority, but they blocked a lot of stuff that made it that made like the overall like the for this particular scenario, like the key steps that would have been like the encrypting and like the impacting steps were blocked, which was awesome. So they were much happier, as you can imagine, with this kind of a result. So I'll show you that in just a minute. If the customer goes through and if they work with us, we're putting the stacks in now automatically. But once we start to see like how the customer is building like their security tools, we can start to build some more visualizations for them, kind of like this. And if you remember, this is sort of is intended to look sort of like that value chain graph we had earlier, where we take all the actions that we conduct as part of the simulations, map them to their tactic or their phase in the MITRE ATT&CK framework or whatever kill chain you prefer, map them into the tool that you gave credit to, like doing the whatever the action was, and then we work with the customer to figure out like where does the data for that thing go. A lot of customers think that they're all centralized on a SIM, and then when we start really looking at like where the raw telemetry goes, it's very rarely all going into the SIM. It's usually like it goes into its own system console and then like synthesized alerts might leave like your EDR console and go into your Splunk instance. But that's not the same thing, right? So if you're responding to an alert that comes up in Splunk for Carbon Black, for example, but you have to go into the Carbon Black console, like the data's not really in Splunk, so you can't cross it with other things that show up in Splunk, right? You've got to go do that manually, looking between Splunk and Carbon Black, and you can see there's a whole big no evidence category here in the middle. And then we track ultimately the outcome of the tool to where the logging went, to whether it was an alert, whether it was logged, or whether it was blocked. So this is a pretty typical like before picture, and then this is a pretty good after picture. We can see the no evidence is going way down in terms of how much they're detecting a lot more now. A lot more stuff is going directly into their SIM, and they're getting much better output on the numbers of the activities that are alert logged and blocked. So right there, so they're moving on their path to getting closer to where they envisioned their security program working, I think, and really being able to go back and forth, and by generating like positive signal in the environment and then tracking its performance to see if they've met their objective or not. If that makes sense. And then I'll swing over real quick and just show you, we have a reporting portal that we like to use for a lot of these things. This allows us to dump like a paper report off for customers and allows them to see like an assigned workflow in a task like any other like ticketing system, but they can give folks access to this without having to give them full access to the BlindSPOT tool. And so you can go in here and you can assign work to folks and have them go be running it down, and the same data that we were showing earlier in the detail for each one is also available in here.
Yep. So, I mean, again, if you want to use this portal, then you can have your team, again, make that difference from the no evidence to the smaller no evidence by going, hey guys, where does this log go? And so kind of track it to a ticket or to some kind of threat hunt or operational. And again, you guys having the ability to log in and continuously run these allows it to be on your time, not just randomly when we click it and then you're like, wait, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and I'll show you real quick. Like, so the when we do these setups, you'll see in here the agents that are checking in. I showed you earlier. You can control some data about this. You have the ability to manage a bunch of stuff going on with the agent. If you need to change like the how often it checks in to look for new simulations or new work, you can do that here in the agent config. You can make some changes. You can run the full endpoint assessment again. So if you've made some changes and you want to see what it looks like, you do that. You can grab a new screenshot. If you're experiencing some issues, this is like a diagnostic upload log file. And then the terminate command is really useful. So the BlindSPOT agent, when it kicks off a simulation, it watches that simulation run, and it keeps track of it. So if something's going wrong and you want to like cancel everything, using that option, not only does it like the BlindSPOT agent like terminate itself, but it also makes sure that all of the other simulations get killed first before it goes away. The simulation library, one last thing, I'm sorry guys, I forgot to touch on this when we were talking about it earlier. So Joe and I and the team are always looking for like new ideas on what people want to test. So we're building these based on a lot of like public reports that are there. We have some incident response companies that we're partnered with who give us a lot of really great corpus of like things they're dealing with, so that we can create really realistic scenarios. But we really want like feedback from the like this group of like what would be valuable to test. We have started experimenting with running, I think we're calling it the kitchen sink at the moment, where it's like a whole bunch of techniques that aren't really an attack simulation, just like literally a whole bunch of techniques to sort of give you like a big smorgasbord of techniques to test against, and just see sort of like you're gonna do a bake off and see like how do these configurations work versus another, or maybe a different tool or something. They also have, all of our simulations are intended to be like production safe. So all of our ransomware samples, unless you ask us to do differently, generate their own sort of like dummy data. Then they encrypt and exfiltrate that. So we're never taking like any real like corporate data. And they also have steps included to like clean up after themselves. So if we set like a scheduled task that runs every day at 11 that kicks off like command prompt or something, we'll set the task and we'll do some things, and then at the end we'll remove it, right? So you don't have like every day at 11 on that machine, you have like command prompt pop up in your face, right? Really annoying. So we do that so that you can run it on like different endpoints, and you can kind of move it around. So you can have it like on a couple lab devices. You can run it there. Make sure that like a change you're projecting for like the way you do like maybe your Windows event forwarding. You've got some different subscriptions you wanna put in place, and you want to see like how does this work against my current one. So you can do them like one next to the other and see the difference and the way the simulation turns out. You can also put some on like production networks of like real actual devices in the enterprise, and have it not like mess that machine up where it's going to need maintenance after the simulations are done. That's something that we really have spent a lot of time thinking about as we make it part of our tabletop exercise strategy, right? Being able to run it on regular machines. You don't have to go ask for like a demo machine. You can just put it on a regular computer and not have to worry about it. And we have a number of different ways that we try to kick those off so that we can simulate like real activity, like I mentioned before. So our agent is a signed binary that runs. You can, if you have application whitelisting or something, you can have that. We publish the similar like the signatures and everything for those files as you generate them, so that you can make sure that it runs correctly in your environment. And then we can kick off the simulations in different ways. Like some of these drop. Like this one drops an XE to disk, but some of them can be DLLs, and we've got a bunch of other mechanisms for kicking those off in the works. And really just want to focus on like what is the most valuable thing that we can do, for this group. Like what would help you either at your job or as you're trying to work through like coming up with better detections and using this to exercise, and what would be most beneficial. I will say the one that we get the most requests for, and I'll just head this question off because I'm sure most of the folks are thinking about it. When we talk about the reports, everyone asks us like, when are you going to have this thing auto score? And I will tell you that we're working on it. So like, for example, we have a couple of customers who are managed service providers who use SOAR platforms, and we're in the process of integrating so that they can run a scenario, and like we'll be able to use their SOAR basically to score it automatically for them, like across their tool chain. So if that's something that's valuable to you, that's something we want to know. Like, okay, great. What tools do you have? Right? We've heard some of the common EDR tools, and so we're working on that. Joe and I are working on maybe being able to take like an export from like some of these common EDR tools of like logs and like upload it in here, and then we'll grab it from there and tell you if this was an alert, this was logged or whatever. So we're definitely thinking about that on top of like already doing the blocks. But so I think that was really it. I'm really anxious to see if there's any questions, anything I can show. I'm sure I went through something too fast, so I'm happy to answer that for folks.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let us know. If you want to open up chat, let me know. I can try to figure out how to open up the chat. So again, some of the cool things about these, the reports, the scenarios, the campaigns, everything's pretty customizable. The buttons, as you'll see, Ben can click around and we can change things, or things change on the timeline and they move up and down at both spots. And then, by the way, when you hit sync, it actually sends it over to that reporting tool. So again, as you create any variances through your network or changes in detection, and then you hit sync, it does send it over to the reporting tool. So bam, once the reporting tool gets it, you can keep an accurate like kind of guesstimation of the things you have resolved.
Yep, that's exactly right. Oh, and one thing I guess I forgot to mention, so these little check marks that are showing up next to these items, you'll see how like some of these icons have like a little crosshair on some of them. So we let you set, I think I mentioned this earlier, we let you set a threshold for a specific simulation. So in this case, this is for the Maze ransomware family. So that's telling you like you met or exceeded your threshold for that particular item. And so that is one of the ways we got some feedback from early on users that were saying like, I really want to know like if I met like overall my objective for this scenario or not, as opposed to just like having some red and some yellow. Like I don't know if that's good or not. So tell me if I met what I was supposed to do. So that's what that is. So if you see that, we track the scoring to see how you did against your threshold.
Yep, and you can custom set that, and it's a per client setting, so nobody else can mess with your settings.
Yep. So you go in here to your simulation, you set your threshold, and then this is what you're scoring it against. So you can go in here and change it if you want to clear out the things. We include our defaults that we kind of give people as like a good, like sort of a maybe either an aspirational or a good starting point, but then you can totally customize it yourself. You can blow away our stuff and say, these guys are idiots, I'll figure this out. Or you can say, yeah, we'll start there and see what we need to change.
Yep. So I don't think I see any questions coming in. Great, then it's a perfect product. So all of you are going to buy it, right? Let me start to let's see. I can enable. There we go. If you guys have mics, I can enable you to talk. I'm enabling it for everyone. Oh.
You might have to mute Billy.
Yep. And no questions, really? You guys don't want to see anything a little bit more, anything a little bit less?
So, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So we can measure the security health of an endpoint just running the agent on the target PC, right? Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, totally, right. So you can just run the endpoint assessment here. I don't remember which one of these I ran it on in this environment. Let me take a look. Yeah, so you can run it here, and then you can go and see, like you can just see, like, just show me the stuff I failed on, right? And it'll filter to just the fails, and you can go through those. You can take a look. So yeah, you totally, without having to run a single simulation, you get like this endpoint assessment. Absolutely.
And so, like I said, I kind of, when I was blasting this out there, called it a purple team tool. Ultimately, we think of it as a purple team tool from the perspective of, you know, we want you guys to use it and to help the blue team be able to, you know, be able to figure out this stuff. And so it's essentially a blue team tool written by red teamers, but I think the value there is, again, in tabletopping and controls testing and endpoint assessments in your breach and adversarial situations. So I ran a poll, Ben, by the way.
Okay.
And I said, where do you see this see the most value? Blue team, compliance, tabletop, red team, all of them. So blue team got 3 votes, sorry, at 25%, compliance at 1 vote, and then all of them with 8 votes, so 66% of the votes. So apparently
nice.
it would be people can see it being useful to all parts of the team.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, you know, one of our goals in trying to build out the interface the way that we're building it now was that we're trying to take the work that like Joe, for example, would do on site with the customers. He's trying to walk somebody who's never seen some of these attack techniques before, but is responsible for figuring out ways to detect them. Like, what is it that Joe talks to these people about, and how would he guide them in a way to do it so that you can kind of do this sort of like self-service, right? Not that we're going to replace a Joe with an app, obviously,
Right.
but like we can get you to at least some basic level where we can help move things along. You don't always have to wait for Joe to be available to help do some of this work, right? You can do a lot of this on your own. It's something that we can help, I think, improve. Like, you know, there are other breach and attack simulation tools out there, and we're big fans of all of them. And what we're really trying to help fit this particular tool in is like it's like after you run it and like totally kicks your butt, it's like the what now is what we want to help folks figure out. Like, well, what do I do now? Like, how did we do, and what do we need to do better? So next time I run it, I get different results, right? That's really where we're trying to focus, because we thought for a while doing these things that we would do a purple team engagement, and we would like up on the projector, we'd show them how to like, you know, run Mimikatz as JavaScript, right? And we'd be like, there you go find it. And we still got these blank stares. We're like, there's still something missing here that we have to help track down. And so that's what we're trying to see if we can address with BlindSPOT. See, we got another question. I commonly hear of risk against OT, IoT devices during pen tests. Are there any assurances with BlindSpot? That's an awesome question. We've been thinking about that a lot. So, the real intention behind BlindSpot, now most of the scenarios we've been asked to simulate are as you can tell, are heavy emphasis on Windows operating systems.
Yeah.
But really the idea is that you could generate any type of activity to exercise the security control you wanted. So for example, if you had an IoT network that you were responsible for managing, or some kind of an OT network, or like some of our healthcare customers where they have like the medical device, the durable medical equipment that they call it, that some of it they have access to like actually see what's going on, like telemetry from the device, and some of it they have nothing. But if you put some controls in an environment and you want to see like, are they working correctly? That's totally like our jam would be to set up a way to help you simulate that and then help you score the outcome of that, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And we've seen some where like you could do like some password guessing against like OT devices. I mean, we're not going to put any like O-Day kind of stuff in here, right? But it would definitely be like, I expect that if this activity were to occur, I would get an alert, right? Or my SOC would get an alert and they would know to respond to this. Or like we just put together this playbook of how to defend our OT network. And I want to exercise some of these and see how the team goes. Like we would build that out so you could say like, I want to exercise this part of the playbook today. I'm going to run these 3 simulations because these cover the scenarios I want to make sure that the team is ready to handle and that they see all the activity. Joe, you have anything you think I missed on that one?
No, yeah. I mean, again, this is still we're still building these out. If that's a scenario you see happening a lot, and you actually have some examples for us, be glad to integrate them. So then we can deploy these agents on that. The benefit is a lot of the backend stuff is written with really flexible languages, really easy to create agents, things like that. That Ben has put a lot of time in just trying to make sure that when they get built, they can be built again, potentially cross-platform. So if there is a platform you're interested in and you can really buy it from us, we'd love to put it on that platform.
Yep.
I think the fact that everybody said all of the above, red team, blue team, but a lot of blue team, right? So again, I think just having the ability of this kind of being able to sit on your network and hopefully be a tool that's not dormant. And I think the way that we can do that again is by continuously giving you guys things that you're seeing. So if somebody does break into your network, and then you use maybe another company or good news, OnDefend comes into your network and does a penetration test. We can go, hey, this is how we broke in. We can build out the scenario that we just ran on your network in BlindSpot, and then rerun it on some of your systems to be able to continuously kind of check for those things. And that's something we're definitely doing, is taking, again, all of my malcraft and tradecraft and putting it as much of this into the system as we can to make it so as you guys run things, of course, with logical sense, right? I can't just go, oh, here's the blind hacker, Joe Brinkley, O'Day, blah, 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 extraordinaire, and then you guys aren't detecting it. Well, no kidding, because there's not a detection for that. But if there's a method that we see that meets MITRE, if there's a method that we see meets the any form of kill chain, that's what we're really interested in. Because again, we want to make this not just oh yeah, I detected you typing in malicious PowerShell. Well, great. But what about when I did it, 10 other ways, or when I stopped using PowerShell and I dropped a C# binary that did bad stuff? Did you detect that? Oh, no, we didn't. Well, hey, those are the things that we got to worry about too, right?
Yep. Totally. All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I see it is already 2:52, so, or at least it is on the East Coast. So I want to say, like, we really appreciate everybody joining us today. I think the next step, you'll be getting an invite from us or a follow-up. And if you are interested in trying this out, like in your lab or at your organization, you want to check it out, we'd love to have you kick the tires with us and do it. So you'll get an invite or an email that'll have the opportunity for you to sign up. We'll just do a quick meeting to get you spun up, make sure you have access to the tool, answer any questions you have, send you on your way, and make sure that we're you know how to like get a hold of us if you have any questions. And and we'll get you started from there. But I really appreciate everybody's time today. Joe, thanks for getting this organized, and really looking forward to chatting with some of you after this.
Well, thanks, guys. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on the social media or through email. And, like I said, we'll get you guys out an email here shortly with a Calendly invite and a little bit of feedback. And if you want some time, schedule us and we'll be glad to chat with you. Thanks for coming.
Great. Thanks, everybody.